Lace up, runners, and get ready for an electrifying episode of Let's Run Fit with B-Lit podcast. Today, we're going to be diving into the world of tapering your training, a game changer for race day success. Join us as we uncover the secrets to reducing your mileage, embracing mental rest, and dispelling all the common myths around tapering. We're also going to share lots of tips to overcome the restlessness and boredom that also occurs during tapering. So let's unlock your race day potential and stay tuned so you can get ready to taper like a champ. Hey guys, before we dive too deep into the actual benefits of tapering itself, I want to explore what it actually means to taper. So tapering is a period of reduced training intensity and volume that leads up to the race to help your body recover. It allows this body recovery and recharge because it's ensuring that you're going to be at your peak performance on race day because you're not going to leave it all in your training, and you give your body time to actually make all of those wonderful adaptations that you forced on it during your training period. So let's go into what actually is happening, those physiological aspects of your taper. There's going to be so much happening with the science in your muscle repair and glycogen storage and your nervous system recovery. So I'm only going to touch on a few of them, but just enough to make sure you actually understand what is happening and why this is so incredibly important to your race day success. When it comes to the muscle repair and adaptation part, this is going to be where you're engaged in your intense training and your muscles are experiencing all those little micro tears and the breakdowns of tissues. All of this is happening over a period of time, and tapering allows your body to repair all of this damage to those muscle fibers, and it leads you to having stronger and more resilient muscles for race day. It also reduces the risk of overuse injury because when you're on a race day, you're putting a lot of pressure on your body. So when you give your body adequate time to recover, it means you're going to be in top peak condition on race day to be able to really put and pound that pavement and be ready to go. We've talked about glycogen a lot so far on this podcast, and glycogen is so incredibly important because it's stored in the form of the carbohydrates in your muscles and your liver, and it provides you the energy during exercise. So during intense training, those stores are becoming depleted every single time you work out if you hit about the 90-minute mark, which if you're training for longer races, you should be running over 90 minutes. So tapering is going to enable the glycogen to actually replenish. Your body's going to replenish all these stores and honestly actually give it a little bit of a super compensation where it puts a little bit extra glycogen there because it's like, oh, we kept using it all, so we need to add a little bit more. And this is going to maximize your fuel reserves on race day and give you a significant energy boost ready to race. Now, we also know that any type of training program that is going to be very intense on your nervous system as well. As you do this intense training, it places all of that significant stress on the central nervous system itself. So when you go into the tapering, it's going to allow your nervous system to recover and recharge. It's going to improve your coordination, your reaction times, your muscle firing patterns, everything, because it's going, oh no, this was a problem. I need to improve to be able to be better next time. And this recovery period enhances your neuromuscular efficiency. It results in a smoother and more efficient movement during your race because you gave your body the rest it needed to make those adaptations to your nervous system that it never had time to do when you're in the middle of your actual training plan going hard every day. When you're training, if you've never had inflammation build up, I'm wondering how much you were actually training, because intense exercise does cause inflammation in your muscles and your joints. So that's another wonderful aspect of the taper, is that tapering actually reduces the stress placed on these areas and allows for all that inflammation to subside because you lowered your mileage and your volume. When you minimize the inflammation, you reduce the risk of injury and optimize your body's overall performance on race day, because now it's not having to fight through all that kind of old inflammation that was kind of building up throughout your training plan, and you are fresh and ready to go. Another thing that gets really crazy when you're in the middle of an intense training period is your hormonal balance. Their hormones will get all kind of out of whack in your body whenever you're doing this intense training, because particularly the stress hormone cortisol, we've all heard of cortisol and how it deals with stress, and it starts to build up in our bodies, and that's bad. So tapering gives you a chance to restore hormonal equilibrium, getting those cortisol levels down, and promotes a more relaxed state. And this hormonal balance is going to influence your mood, motivation, and mental readiness for race day, because you've got to calm down sometimes. We always say that you need to calm down, and that's going to be what you get to do. The last part of the actual physiological things that are changing is going to be your psychological restoration that's going to happen during your tapering, because it's not just about your physical recovery, it's also about your mental rejuvenation and happiness and re-excitement into your training, because training is a lot of work. This intense training is going to lead to your mental fatigue, your decreased motivation. All of this stuff is going to build up over time. So when you reduce that training volume and intensity, it allows your mind to recharge. It reignites that passion for running. It builds your confidence up for race day. So when you get there, you're so excited to run because you've been kind of holding yourself back for a little bit. So that way it's almost like a rubber band. You kind of hold yourself back and you pull it back. So when you let it go and you can finally get out there and take off, you just feel fantastic because you've been wanting to go for so long that it's just literally like that rubber band snapping you forward. The mental game that comes with the tapering, it's so important because it really does give you that confidence boost, and that's going to be when it really matters most. You really need to let your mind really recover from the fatigue and the decreased motivation and the mental burnout that comes with these training plans, unfortunately, because like I said, it's a lot of work. And tapering really gives you that time to prioritize your mental rest. It allows you to recover, it allows you to recharge, it increases enthusiasm, reduces stress and anxiety, enhances your focus, concentration, mental clarity, all these things we've kind of already talked about briefly, and just really gives you that positive mindset on race day. However, the one thing that does come with tapering at the beginning is you do get this overwhelming feeling of anxiety and self-doubt because you feel like by stopping that you're going to be halting your progress, and that is not what happens at all. So you really got to have a plan going into your taper of how to overcome that anxiety so on race day you don't have that same anxiety happening. You really need to engage in some type of a mindful exercise or meditation to quiet your mind, reduce the anxiety, and enhance the self-awareness of your own running so you can stay present, appreciate the progress you've made, and really just build that positive mindset. Along with that mindfulness, you also really need to kind of hone in and set your realistic expectations. We've had an episode on race day planning already. That's episode 20. Go back to that. That can give you a lot of ideas about race day goals, like A, B, and C goals. But this is going to be the time when you need to write those goals. It's going to be when you need to acknowledge that you're going to be feeling like you're doing something counterintuitive, and you're going to be feeling like by reducing your training volume and intensity, you're not helping, but you need to remind yourself that this is part of your overall training process. It's essential for your optimal performance on race day, and this is where you set realistic expectations for your tapering period and for race day. This is where you really can self-reflect and be like, this is my A goal. This is my B goal. This is my C goal, or my first through third goals, however you word it, so you can be ready. This is also where you need to visualize your success so you can make these goals. Use those visualization techniques to really imagine yourself performing your best on race day, visualizing yourself crossing the finish line, feeling strong and confident. That mental imagery can actually really help you. It alleviates that anxiety, it boosts your confidence, it reinforces that positive belief about your ability that is so incredibly important. It actually does matter to really just close your eyes and watch yourself in your mind on the race course each step of the way, what you're going to do, what you're going to feel, and watch yourself in your mind crossing that finish line. Now, you're going to have a lot of build-up energy, but you do need to make sure you're focusing on active recovery and not just going right back into your training plan. We have a reduced volume and intensity for a reason, because this is where you need to shift your focus to those active recovery activities that you enjoy. Don't do something you don't like. Engage in those low impact exercises like yoga or swimming or walking that really keeps that physical activity going and helps you with that mental relaxation and helps you alleviate the anxiety and maintain a sense of routine without the excessive strain and impact on your joints that come with those hard workout sessions and those really, really long runs and everything else that we do during a training session. This is where you really need to focus on letting your body heal. But remember, you don't want to just go from training on your peak week to sitting on your butt and doing nothing. You still need to be doing something, and that's that active recovery workouts. And I really suggest that you find someone to do these active recovery workouts with. Reach out to fellow runners or friends or someone in your running community for support and encouragement during this tapering period. You're going to want to share your feelings and concerns and your achievements with others who understand those challenges of training, and their support can really help you overcome all of that self-doubt and stay motivated to actually follow your taper plan properly. Just talking to someone who doesn't get it doesn't always kind of really get the job done, because if they don't understand what the taper is, they're just going to go tell you, well, if you want to run, go run. Why aren't you running? Because it makes sense from an outside perspective, but you need to make sure that you're talking to someone who understands why you taper. So when you're telling them like, oh, all I want to do is run right now, they can support you and say, I get it, but why don't we go for a walk? Or why don't we just go do an easy swim? Or let's just do some yoga, something like that, so you can really have someone there in your corner to support you along the way. I also highly suggest on the mental side that you really reflect on your training journey. This time is so important because training is the biggest part of being a marathoner. If you don't like training or a half marathoner or whatever it is, you've got to be able to appreciate the journey. Take time to reflect on the progress you've made through your training journey. You should have done some time trials, even if you're training for a 1 miler or a 5K. Do some time trials, look at them along the way, and really appreciate how much you have grown. Remember the hard work and dedication, the milestones you achieved, and recognize that this taper is the reward for your efforts and an opportunity to really prepare your mind and body for race day because you've earned it. You've worked your butt off for who knows how many weeks. Some plans are 12 weeks, some are like 18, some are even longer than that, depending on how long you were building your base. So really reflect on what you did and celebrate yourself on this tapering time. So now we've covered the significance and the mental aspects of tapering. So we really need to kind of really discuss the structure at this point because it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So I'm going to kind of show you a couple different various tapering strategies that can really help align you with what's going to fit your training style and your race goals best. The number one thing you have to decide when it comes to tapering is if you're going to need a shorter taper or a longer taper. And all of this has to do with the mileage of the race you're actually running. Shorter race tapering, which is going to be for the literally shorter races, so 5K, 10K, those are going to generally span a shorter duration of time and normally only about 1 to 2 weeks at most because the distance really isn't that far. So you don't have the, same mileage that was built up during your training that you really need to recover on. The focus here is going to be maintaining your fitness level while still allowing that body to recover and recharge from the damage that you did do during training so that way you know that you're ready to go. This is going to be your gradual reduction in your volume and intensity. It's going to be emphasis on maintaining your speed and sharpening your race-specific skills. Depending on the distance, those are going to be different. And limiting all of those kind of cross trainings that you kind of did throughout your training cycle so that way it minimizes fatigue and your body is ready to go. When you're focusing on these shorter distances, the taper is not nearly as important as it is for the longer distances. It is definitely going to make a difference, but it's not going to make a difference to the level it does on the half marathon and especially the marathon and above. These longer race tapering, those are going to be over a much longer period of time, normally about 2 to 3 weeks. Some people need even longer for the marathon distance, just depending on how their body recovers. The primary objective of all of these is to optimize recovery, reduce that accumulated fatigue, and make sure you're at peak performance on race day. So this is going to be a significant reduction in training volume, just like with the lower distances. This is going to allow you to actually recover. It's also going to be a reduction in the intensity, same thing, so that way you can, focus on those race-specific workouts. And again, kind of reducing the cross-training activities that you've added in that are going to cause a lot of fatigue and, adding in some others that are going to help you maintain your cardiovascular fitness. So this one, you could add stuff. that's going to help your cardio but reduce impact. So this could be where you could kind of add in swimming or add in biking, anything that's going to be lower impact so your body's still recovering while you're still able to keep that heart rate going. So I've kind of explained the differences, but I'm going to give you the step-by-step guide on your tapering that's going to really help you know what to do. First off, determine your tapering durations. This is where you need to identify the length of your taper period based off your race distance, your training program. Again, shorter races, shorter taper, longer races, more extended taper. Work all this out with your coach. A lot of it's already built into training plans. If you had a proper training plan built for you somewhere, if it does not have a taper, just throw it out. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If your training plan does not have any form of taper or reduction in mileage and intensity, throw it away. Whoever wrote that had no clue what they're doing. Throw it away. You need to make sure that you identify that taper period. This is going to be where you reduce your training volume. So gradually decreasing your weekly mileage during the taper period. You want to aim for about a 20 to 30% reduction of mileage during the first week or so, followed by a further reduction of 40 to 50% in the second week for those longer races. Shorter races, you really don't need that kind of a drastic of a reduction, but you do still need a reduction in mileage. But that's kind of what you're aiming for. You really want to cut back that mileage while still keeping the same patterns, so same days of the week, just less mileage on those days. Third, maintain those key workouts. Remember how I said those race-specific workouts? You want to retain 1 or 2 of those workouts per week to maintain that race-specific fitness. These are going to include your speed or tempo runs, your hill repeats, your intervals. You want to reduce the total volume and the intensity of these compared to your peak training phase, but you still want those in there, because if you just cut them out completely, your body's gonna be like, all right, don't need that anymore, and it's going to kind of throw it away, because our bodies will adapt to what's being thrown at it. So if you don't keep kind of having that in there at least a little bit at a smaller intensity, it's going to not think that it's very important. Fourth, incorporating that cross-training activity such as cycling, swimming, any low aerobic exercise, low impact. That's all going to help you maintain that cardiovascular fitness while minimizing impact on your stress and your joints and your muscles, so everything can kind of heal across the period of time. And you want to aim for about 2 to 3 of these cross-training periods per week. But if you've done 0 cross-training in your entire training cycle, that might not be the best idea. So that is only for people who have been doing some type of other activity. If you have literally only run for 20 weeks, if you start throwing in other stuff now, you're going to really start to get some sore muscles if you're not careful. Fifth, you want to really focus on your rest and recovery. Prioritizing rest and recovering during your taper is going to be what's going to truly make the difference. You want to get adequate sleep. Have good nutrition, allow time for active recovery exercises like foam rolling, stretching, mobility. Meaning, you don't go, oh, I don't have to run 20 miles on Saturday anymore, so I'm going to do a marathon clean of my house, or I'm going to go to the theme park, or, whatever those crazy life activities that really get you out and moving and active, they're great, but not during your taper. Your taper's really when you want to relax and calm down and just keep that rest and recovery a priority. This is when you can say, yes, I'm going to watch a little extra TV and foam roll while I do it. And that is just fine. You also want to maintain a constant routine during this taper. You don't want to get restless or bored. Like I just said, you might go on that marathon clean of your house and it'll feel so good because you have so much energy that is built up in your body because your body's used to putting out all this energy and you're still feeding it the nutrition the same as when you were running. Yes, your food stays the same. And if you drastically have all those changes, your body's going to start getting shaky and it's going to make you want to think that you either need to do this or do that, or you're going to start getting those phantom injury pains because every taper, especially the longer ones, your body will come up with every reason why something is injured and everything is going, down the tubes. Don't believe in that. Just stick with your routine, stick with your regular running schedule like mentioned before, just reduced volume, reduced intensity. It'll preserve that mental aspect and keep you sane during this process. And last, trust the process. Stay positive. Believe that your training and your tapering process did its job. Embrace the reduced workload, take necessary steps, towards reaching your peak performance on race day, like that good nutrition and sleep and foam rolling, all of that wonderful things, and use positive self-talk and visualization, mental preparation. Those techniques are going to be what's going to keep you confident and focused, because when you go into that taper period, our brains start to have anxiety and they start to freak out. Don't freak out. It'll all be okay. So speaking of freaking out, I'm going to go through some of, the tapering challenges that come up because they are going to be there. It's not always going to be smooth sailing, and you're probably going to start freaking out no matter how much I tell you not to. So many runners face these challenges during this training period because they have extra time on their hands and it's close to the race and you've been preparing for months in most cases for this race and everything's coming down to this. So this is kind of some of the stuff that happens, and here's how you can overcome some of those and keep yourself on track just by being prepared to identify these obstacles, address the fear, address the stress, all of those things so you are ready to go. But the number one fear that comes into everybody is the fear of losing fitness. I cannot tell you how many times I have had one of my athletes come up to me after they're in a either taper period or, we've just been in the middle of a multi-race season like track. And I was like, you just need to rest. Don't run. Just rest. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose fitness. I feel terrible. It's been 4 days since I've run. Well, you haven't lost fitness. Like nothing's wrong. You're fine. And they're like, no, I feel sluggish. I feel this. And they're like freaking out because they took 2 days off and they feel like that 2 days is the end of the world. It's not. It is so important to remember that tapering is a strategic process. It allows your body to recover, repair, and super compensate for what's coming. So you need to address that in your mind and know that it's going to optimize your performance. It's going to reduce that accumulated fatigue that has built up. It's going to allow your muscles to repair, that glycogen to replenish. It's going to give you that neuromuscular coordination, and it's going to help you reduce risk of injury on race day. And also, it's going to help you preserve and create those hard-earned fitness gains that you had during that period of time where you were training hard. So no, you will not lose fitness during this period unless it's like a 3-week taper and you sit on your butt and do nothing, meaning you don't even pick up, one pair of running shoes. That's the only time that it could be a problem. If you're still doing, an easy run here or going out for a walk or taking a bike ride or going for an easy swim, you're not going to lose anything. And it takes multiple weeks before you really start to lose anything. So just take a breath and know it'll all be okay. So next, I want to go through our 3 myths that I hear most common past just the I'm going to lose fitness, because these are the things that my athletes come to me and they start to argue with me about. And I'm like, y'all, I have the training for this. I have the training for this. Just listen and breathe. And they freak out because there's all this stuff that has been hammered into them from childhood, especially with other team sports where running is not considered, an actual sport itself, but considered the punishment. And it freaks them out big time, and they think they're going to be mentally weak or struggle in one way or another. So myth 1, they think they need to keep pushing hard until race day. They think that they need to keep running hard and that race day is just the last hard run. And yes, race day is the last hard run, but you need to rest before that. You need to give your body time to recover. Tapering is crucial for that optimum performance, allowing it to recover, recharge, and be prepared. And otherwise, you're going to have left it all in training and have nothing available on race day. You got to refill the tank. If you're constantly driving the car and you never stop for gas, you're eventually going to run out of gas. Same exact thing here. You've got to refill the tank and give the car time to, refill. Myth number 2, I'm going to gain weight during tapering, so there's no way I can do that. No. Okay, just no. A taper, first off, is not long enough that it could really cause a lot of damage unless you are intentionally eating in a way that's going to cause that kind of damage. If you're eating proper nutrition, you're not going to have a problem. If you decide to take your taper and you cut out every single vegetable, you never drink water, and you go to like McDonald's every night or something, yeah, you could possibly gain weight in that 3-week period. But if you're still eating your healthy foods, you're getting your vitamins, getting your nutrients, eating those vegetables and fruits, you're not going to really see any changes. You're going to have a slight reduction in training volume, and that's not going to cause you to gain weight. You're going to be able to restore those glycogen. So on the scale itself, there's probably going to be a couple pounds difference, but you can't gain a couple pounds in just 3 weeks. Like that's just physiologically impossible unless there's something medically wrong. That is going to be the water retention that comes with the carb loading, because hopefully you are still getting those carbs during this time. And that does come with water retention because glycogen is stored with water, but it's fine. As soon as you race, all that goes away. You'll be fine. You're not going to gain weight during your taper just because you reduced your training output and calorie output. The last myth number 3, is the most common one, is they think that they need to completely stop running during their taper. Like I mentioned before, that's bad. That can cause you to lose fitness over time if you do absolutely nothing. Tapering is reducing the volume and intensity, but still incorporating key workouts to maintain fitness, not reducing to zero. That's bad. Don't reduce to zero. You want your body still moving and it'll be okay. So don't go too hard, but don't go too light either, right? Do what your coach and your training plan tells you. Do those small reductions and everything will be okay. Now, past the myths. Like I mentioned, you're going to feel a little restless or bored. You want to keep your routine. You might get a little cabin fever because you're used to going out on those long runs and all of that stuff. So here's a couple, other tips to help you through that, because this is probably the hardest part. Embrace the cross training, like I mentioned. If you have that cross training activity, like you're cycling, you're swimming, and strength training, to a point on strength training, you don't push hard. You are not lifting heavy. You are not turning into a power lifter. Just whatever you're doing, just keep yourself physically active, reduce the impact on your muscles, and it's going to kind of add variety. It's going to prevent monotony and give you something to do during your workout time that's normally scheduled. Next, find a new hobby. There's nothing wrong with doing something else. This is your extra time to go explore those interests outside of running. Marathon training is like a part-time job. It takes hours a week. So go do something you really like. Go read the book that's been sitting on your nightstand forever. Go work on that painting you decided you wanted to do. Go cook a meal that you've always wanted but never had time because it's got a lot of steps. Go practice the piano or guitar or whatever musical instrument that you have. Go write or do your crafts, because if you're anything like my family, they have crafts coming out the wazoo that they don't touch. Go find those things and use this as a chance to get back into the world you love. Next, you can also just socialize with fellow runners. If you're connecting with other people who are going through the same thing, whether through an online community or in person, you can talk about your experiences, your strategies, gain support. That social interaction will alleviate that cabin fever, give you that sense of camaraderie. And if there are people running the same race as you, there should also be in a taper, and they will fully understand, and you can kind of band together. You can also set some short-term goals. Any short-term goal for your taper that can help you maintain that motivation. Try a new running route, improve your flexibility, set like a personal record on a non-competitive setting. So not like I'm going to run my fastest mile, but maybe I want to stretch for the most amount of time. Just something calming that can be a short goal that you could do. You can also do the active recovery. These are going to be your yoga, gentle yoga. Yoga can get intense. Gentle yoga. Foam rolling, gentle stretching, all of this stuff. It's going to aid in your recovery. It's going to promote relaxation, mental rejuvenation, and have you ready to go. You can also slightly adjust your routine and keep that constant routine, but consider just mixing it up. Instead of it being, I have to work out at this exact time, vary the time of day for your workout. Explore a different location. Something that can add freshness and novelty to your running routine so you still feel fresh and you're not bored because you can't go out there and do all the miles. And like I mentioned before, trust your training. Remember that you worked so hard in this training. You've put so much time and effort into this period leading up to your race day. So trust the training plan, have confidence in your preparation, embrace the taper as an essential part of the process that's going to maximize your race day potential mentally and physically. I hope you learned something new about tapering and that you are ready to embrace this as your next challenge and not the next thing that you're forced to put up with. I hope you got those valuable insights into the art of tapering, the immense benefits that it gives you on race day, all of those wonderful things. And remember, a well-executed taper can transform your running experience, so embrace it, trust it, and watch your performance soar. Happy running, guys. Thanks so much, runners, for spending time with me and listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, please hit that subscribe button and leave me a review. I always love to hear from my listeners. And if you want more Let's Run Fit in your life, find me on Instagram at Let's Run Fit with BLit. Until next time, runners! The information in this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for medical or professional advice. Please always consult a medical professional if you're seeking medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The Let's Run Fit podcast is not liable for risk or issues associated with using or acting upon the information in this podcast.